What up? Welcome to Homegrown Hustle, where local brilliance takes the center stage. I'm your host, Matt Eichmann. Join us every week in celebrating innovation, guidance, and the power to inspire greatness. Let's explore the stories that shape our local business landscape, and together, let's ignite the spark of excellence.
What's up? Welcome to the Homegrown Hustle. I'm here for a very special episode with a very special person. I've got Elaine Rasmussen. She is the founder and CEO of Social Impact Now and Connect Up Institute, along with a few other things that she's got going on, but we'll be here all day if we're going to start rattling those off. Introduce yourself, and first of all, thank you for coming on the show. I know you're a busy woman, but we're really excited to talk about the businesses and the opportunities you got in front of you right now.
Thank you for having me. It's really great to be here. I really appreciate being invited. So yeah, my name's Elaine Rasmussen, born and raised in Los Angeles, California, but been living here in the Twin Cities now for coming up on 17 years. I'm like, can't believe it's been this long. But yeah, I'm one of these crazy serial entrepreneurs. I've done a lot of stuff, but most notably, I am the founder and CEO of Social Impact Now, which is a social finance and impact investing design firm. So I help people, organizations, projects actually align the money that's being put into it with the values that they want to see or the output or the impact that they want to see. And through my own experience, I found that there was a really big gap in helping businesses grow. I like to talk about the ecosystem is like a baseball game. Mm-hmm. It's really good at getting you from home to first, and it's really great when you're already on third base. But what's missing, and I don't think Minnesota is alone, is how does a business get from first to second and second to third? And so from there, through my own experience, I just started bringing people together, which then grew into Connect Up Institute, which is a social finance and enterprise development studio where we support entrepreneurs across the state to help them grow and scale, getting them from first to second and second to third.
All right, so let's unpack that analogy a little bit.
Yeah.
So when you're talking first to second and second to third, what are some of the things you mean, like when it comes to the businesses that they need to accomplish in your analogy? Like getting to first is like, okay, you have a business.
Right. You have a business. Maybe you filed with the state. Maybe you have some sales. Maybe you're doing some pop-ups. You got maybe a steady revenue. And I usually say that's that 0 to like 2 years old, right? Mm-hmm. You're like, okay, you got hustle. You're literally operating on adrenaline.
Yeah.
Right. And every day is a new like problem that you need to solve. Mm-hmm. At some point in time, you get to the place of like, I can't keep doing this. I can't just be waking up in the morning and arranging my day based on how I feel that morning.
Yeah.
I've got to get more strategic. I got to get more organized. And maybe you don't even put words to it, but you're like, I can't keep doing what I'm doing.
There's a feeling behind it.
There's a feeling that I'm
looking for something.
Right. I'm frustrated. It's not working, or I'm not making traction, or I've hit a plateau and I can't seem to bust through. I'm like, okay, I made $1,000 a month and I keep making $1,000 a month, but how do I get to 5? Yeah. Right. And so what we start to see is, the real problem is you don't have processes or systems. Everything is on emotion. Mm-hmm. Everything is all on reaction. And
it's so deadly in a business.
Like, and it's deadly in life, actually.
Yeah. It's good at first, but like when it comes to the business, like we got to be doing math and numbers, not feelings.
100%. And even just thinking about somebody else should be doing it, not me. And that's a really hard thing because entrepreneurs have a tendency of being control freaks. just a tinge, right? And so the fact that no one's going to do it the way I do it. Mm-hmm. And when I work with entrepreneurs, I go, yeah, because no one is you.
Exactly.
Right? It's literally no one is going to do it.
Setting that expectation like sets everyone up for failure.
Right. So it's like, how can you create something that gets it as close to as what you would do? Oh, write it down. If you tell, it's weird. Like, right? It's crazy how that happens, right? But it's like when you go to, I tell people, if you go to a hotel or if you go, to a fast food restaurant, why is it the same in Peoria, Illinois, as it is in St. Paul, Minnesota? Oh, because there's a process that tells them how long that burger needs to sit on the fryer, how long those fries need to sit in the fryer basket. They don't leave it to chance. Well, you kind of have to do the same thing. And it's better to do it when your business is small than wait till like, I'm going to wait to do that till I'm making $10,000 a month. It is way too hard and way too complicated. I always tell my businesses, like for me, when I started my business in 2017, I wanted to start as though I had 50 employees. So when I put it in that framing of like, yeah, I only have one or two, but what would I do if I had 50? Oh, well, if I had 50, I'd want to write this down. I want to make sure. And so starting it when it's small makes it a lot easier. So I'll give you an example. Every single intern that I hired, even though I wasn't paying them, every single intern got an offer letter. Because my thought was, when I do start to hire people, I want to have an offer letter. When I've gotten hired, I got an offer letter that clearly laid out the terms of my employment. And that actually saved my bacon, because one of my interns filed, I'm telling you, one of my interns filed for unemployment. And because they didn't know, I don't think there's anything malicious about it, but they put down all the places they worked, and they worked for me. And so unemployment's like, so you got to, I'm like, no, I don't. And because I had the offer letter that said, hey, this person's coming on for a set amount of time for a flat fee. They have a certain amount of projects. When this project is done, that's it. And so because I had that offer letter, I turned that into EEOC, and they were like, oh yeah, you don't need to pay unemployment for this person. But if I hadn't had that,
right?
Exactly. And that was with an intern. So just imagine if that had been an employee.
So where did that come from? That whole thought of like building it with the end in mind, where you're like, I'm firing this up, but I'm going to build it for 50 employees. Like, where did that thought process come from? Because not a lot of business owners think that
No.
way, myself included.
I think it probably came from two places. So maybe three places. One, working in corporate America. So when you work in corporate America,
see it, you've been there.
Right. That's kind of the ethos of like, well, what are we building this to? Or where's the end point, right? And then like, are the decisions that we're making today going to get us there, right? I think the other part is, I'm a big fan of Stephen Covey, right? So that's his axiom is like, begin with the end in mind. Yeah. But also just in my own experience, I found I am a big dreamer, and I'm a big visualizer. And so for me, it's like, okay, for me to be clear about the step ladder of steps that are going to take me, I need to be super, super clear on what's the end game. Because as I'm moving through on my path and on my journey, what that allows me to do is be able to right swipe and left swipe on opportunities that come to me. And so when that...
Another good analogy.
Right, right. So if I'm super clear about what the end is...
There's clarity in the decision making.
Right. So, something comes up and it's like, oh, Elaine, we want you to do X, Y, and Z, or be a part of blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you know what? That's a great opportunity. It's actually going to be a distraction. And I think that's the other thing with
wisdom in business.
Right? I think, but it's hard because you're just like on the hustle. You're like, but there's money in that. And it's like, yeah, but what is it going to cost you? Not time, resources, energy, right? Our energy is a valuable, non-renewable resource. So for me to be really clear about, I can say to this opportunity, you're right, this is an amazing opportunity, but it's actually a distraction. It's not actually in alignment with where I know that I want to go. Or it's a time for me to question, is where I wanted to go, is that really where I wanted to go? Because I see the potential of this, and actually, you know what? This fills my cup a lot more. So now I need to go and reimagineer the vision.
Well, and some of it comes down to, with opportunity, like the timing of it, right? It could... Sometimes it's a great opportunity, but the timing's not right.
Right.
And having the ability to like be zoomed out enough to think about it that way. I know from my experience, like it's taken a long time to develop that muscle. Do you think that coming from corporate America kind of gave you that perspective from Jump Street when it came to actually starting your businesses? A
little bit. And I will say, I think the difference between my corporate experience and probably most people's corporate experience, I worked in organizations where every job that I had I was the first person who had the job. So there was almost this
trailblazer,
right? There was almost this entrepreneurship with it, I call it intrapreneurship, right? There's entrepreneurship like in the role, as opposed to, I think one of two things happens with people who work in corporate. They either go and start a business and they don't realize that when you work in corporate, you're only responsible for your postage stamp of real estate. And you think that because you were really successful there, that you're going to be successful in everything.
It applies to everything.
Right? And it's like, it's not. It's very, very different. And they have a hard time adjusting because you are now all the things. You're the sound engineer. You're the lighting person, the cinematographer, right? You're also the host of the podcast. And so, or people are like, no, I was always the person that was called to troubleshoot. I was always the person who had good ideas. I was always the person who had strategy to get us out of situations. So I find it's usually those people go in one of those two directions. And these folks over here are usually the ones that make I will say better entrepreneurs, because they don't get so attached and they don't get so hung up on like something not working. They're used to like, no, things don't work all the time, right?
There's always something not working.
There's always something not working, as opposed to the other side, which is like they worked in a machine and the machine just worked because it had a history and it had a structure and a system that you didn't have to think about all the other pieces around it.
Then you just run the quality control process.
Exactly.
And as long as it's in line, you're good.
Exactly. So when those folks get into a business, they lose their crap a little bit.
Yeah, well, because like business and startup world is not.
No.
You don't have any of the mechanisms. You don't have the machine,
Zero.
let alone the quality control process. In
No,
place,
you
right?
are, and you're all the things. And so it gets easy to overwhelm because you've never had to think through that, right? Because your job was fairly predictable. Now, that's not to say that you can't learn it, right? But and these are all generalizations, right? But what I have seen is those folks have a really hard time adjusting to all of the plates that have to spin in order to make their business go.
For sure, because I mean, I could anticipate a level of analysis paralysis when you're used to showing up to work and there's like, you got your one plate spinning. And
right.
That's
That's
one,
all you
and
have to
I
take
got
care
8,
of.
9, 10. Which one am I looking at, right?
Exactly.
So 2017 is when you started. So take me to that.
Okay.
That thought process, that time of your life. Like, what was it in you where you're like, I'm going to do this?
Oh, that's a great story. So I left my job very abruptly. It was really a mic drop moment. I went into my job. My boss at the time had been traveling, and this was her first day back and being gone for like over 20 days or something ridiculous. And so we were both in the office. I was in my office. She was in her office. And it was probably like 2 p.m. I got this crazy email from her. And I'm like, what? So I'm like, we're not going to do the email back and forth. I'm going to go to her office. I go to her office. I knock on her door. I'm like, are you busy? She's like, no. I said, I want to talk to you about this email that I got from you. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, I'm going to close the door. And I said, I don't understand what you're saying in this email. And so she kind of gave an attitude, and she's like, well, I've talked to you about this before. She's like, and I'm like, I'm looking at her the way you're looking at me. Like, what are you talking about?
Trying to
right. I'm trying to understand. And so I said, okay, what you're telling me now and what was in the email are 2 different things. And I really want this to be a learning moment. I really want to understand like what the issue is. And she was just doing a terrible job at explaining to me, which then led me feel like it was BS, right? She was just making a reason. So I said, she was saying that another person who I brought into the organization as a consultant had an issue with me. Now, what she didn't know is I had known this person for 10 years. So everything that she was saying really wasn't making sense. I said, well, you know what? Let's call her. Let's call her because
That's how you solve problems.
I said, let's call her.
Remove
And
the
she
drama.
did not like that.
Of course not.
Right? So she reluctantly calls. We get this person's voicemail. And so after my boss hangs up the phone, she looks at me and she's like, listen, she's like, I don't have time for this. You don't have time for this. And I was like, she's like, I got to take care of these letters that, by the way, I had asked her to sign 2 months ago. Okay. They were still sitting on her desk. So I was like, at that point, I'm like, she's talking to me like I'm a child. So this is a whole problem. So I said, you know what? I'm going to let you get back to what you're doing. Thank you for taking time to talk to me. I'm going to head back to my office. So I left her office. I closed the door. I went back to my office. I picked up the phone. I called my partner. And I'll never forget, it was 2:55. So I called my partner. I said, I don't have time to talk right now because I have a 3:00 call. But when I get home, we need to talk about me leaving my job.
So it was like an epiphany almost.
It was just like,
too many things happened, and
it was like, so I went home that night. I told my partner what had happened, and this had been a slow burn, right? I told my partner what happened, and we were like, I gotta go. I gotta quit. And so I called my assistant the next day on Saturday and I said, I'm quitting. I'm leaving. And she was like, no. And I'm like, yes. And on Sunday, I called the woman who my boss said that I offended. I called her and talked to her. And she was like, she goes, I knew she was going to do this. She's like, I knew that she was going to do this. I said, she's like, but you've created this event and I want you to get credit for it. I said, no. I said, I gotta go. So I put in my letter of resignation and like that was it. Now, At that point, I was still not looking to start a business.
You didn't even know what you were doing. You just knew you weren't going to be
Right?
there.
And I told my assistant, I said, here's my unsolicited advice to you. No job is worth your dignity. No job. I don't care who it is. I don't care what it is. There's no job worth your dignity. And you need to figure out what your line in the sand is, because this human will cross it. She doesn't know anything else but to cross people's boundaries. So I said, you've got to figure that out. Otherwise you will be here forever and you will be miserable and you'll have a heart attack and you're like all the things, right? And so I left, and it was a huge sigh of relief, even though I was petrified because I didn't have a job. I didn't have a job. I had bills. I had a whole mortgage. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm like, I knew I couldn't stay there. I was going to catch a case if I stayed there.
You put yourself into a corner.
Right. So I decided, I was like, I actually got recruited for another CEO role, and it didn't feel right. Like the whole thing, I didn't know what it was, but it didn't feel right. And I went through the whole interview process. They flew me out. It was in another state. They flew me out 3 times. And then I was just like, when it came to, they offered me the job and we were negotiating. And I was like, well, if this job is for me, I'm going to negotiate all the things that I want. And if it's for me, they will agree. If it's not for me, it's not for me.
Line in the sand.
Right? They did not agree to all my terms, which I thought were reasonable. I don't feel like I had anything that was outlandish. The one big sticking point was they wanted me to move right away, and my son was in basic training. He was away at basic training, and I'm like, I want to be home when he comes home, because otherwise I would have been in this other state. And they were like, no, we need you here. And I'm like, okay, if you can't understand that I want to be home for my son when he comes home from basic training, this isn't the job for me. So I was brokenhearted. I ate a lot of Haagen-Dazs ice cream for like 2 days because I felt my ego was really bruised that they wouldn't agree to my terms. But then I was like, Elaine, that isn't even what you wanted to do. You said you wanted to move money differently. That was really what I wanted to do. And I felt like I was working in philanthropy. Philanthropy wasn't it. So what was it going to be? And literally within 24 hours, I'm like, I need to start my own business, because then I'm actually going to do what I want to do. I'm not going to be censored. I can actually say the things that I want to say that actually I think are going to actually align with my values, but also the impact that I feel needs to happen in the world. And so 2 days later, I built a website. I got my business cards. I registered my business. And that's how Social Impact Now was born.
The races.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, in a way, you're kind of still in that same line of philanthropy, but you're not just giving, and now it's supporting other people through accessing capital.
Right. And not only that, like the whole thing with philanthropy is convincing people.
What does it mean to you?
Yeah. What does it mean to me, or what does it actually do? I think those are 2 different questions.
What does it actually do?
So philanthropy, there's a couple of ways that philanthropy happens. Philanthropy can happen at the individual level. Maybe you give to your place of worship. Maybe you donate to a cause. That's one set of philanthropy. Then there's what's called institutional philanthropy. So that might be anything that has the word foundation in it. And that can be a community foundation or it can be a private foundation. In both cases, the federal government requires that those organizations only have to give out, their minimum is 5%. So let's say I have $100 million amount of money. I only have to give out 5%. And what philanthropy typically does is they have invested that 95 million, right? Because that's 95% of 100 million, just to make the math easy. They are investing that. And then the interest that they gain, or the returns that they gain on their investment, that's what funds their grant making. So they are keeping $95 million on their books. To give away 5 that is generating $5 million of returns, but keeping not only the 95, but is growing the 95.
So it's a money move, kind of.
Listen.
It does help people, though.
Yeah, it does. But what could it look like? One of the questions that I ask is, what could it look like if a $100 million foundation closed? What could actually be leveraged with that $100 million?
Craziness.
Right? And not to say that we can solve, there's not enough philanthropy to solve every problem in the world, or even every problem in Minnesota, but could we actually fundamentally invest in the root causes? We know what the root causes are. Root causes are access to food. Root causes are access to quality jobs and financial mobility. Root causes are an education system that's crumbling within itself, right? and is supporting mythology as opposed to history and civic engagement, right? We are living in a time where facts are being rewritten, right? So if we invested $100 million of we have a 20-year plan, right? Of getting to a place where people can get quality jobs. Doesn't mean everybody has to work for a corporation, but that people can have quality jobs. People can earn a quality living. People could we actually increase and change how philanthropy looks because people are taken care of.
What are the other ways that it could look besides this 95.5% model? Can we accelerate the solving of these problems that we're attempting to solve?
Right.
That's a deep one right there. Okay, so let's not dive down that rabbit hole.
Okay,
so,
we'll do that on another show.
So that really helps me have a better understanding of what that space looks like. So the transition for you then, you're working in this world where you understand the capital and the resources that are there.
Right.
And you understand that there's entrepreneurs that some of them don't even know that those resources exist, even at the banking level. They're just bootstrapping everything.
Exactly.
So there's this massive gap because the whole purpose of keeping this 95 is ensuring that you can continue to give and the bucket's full long term, right?
Yes.
So that 8 to 10% they're getting on that by just having it invested, if you can beat that somewhere else from a financial standpoint, it makes sense.
Right.
It just comes down to that risk.
Right. And even from a social impact, right? If I find it crazy when a foundation says this part of their mission is that they are working to solve some kind of poverty-related problem, whether it's food, whether it's homelessness, but they're only giving 5%. And you look at their investments, which are in the capital markets, it's okay, if I gave you the chocolate chip off of a cookie, right, because that would equate to 5%, would you still be hungry?
I'd be wondering what's going on with the rest of the cookie.
Right. At the minimum, right? Right. And again, I don't want to, to your point, I don't want to discount that philanthropy does do good work. But philanthropy also doesn't have a natural predator, right? Like we have in business to make it more efficient, to hold it accountable. There's no accountability with philanthropy, right? Unless the community dives into the 990, the tax forms of that foundation, there's no natural predator. Business has a natural predator, other business. Right? So everybody has a natural predator, even in your job. If you're not doing your job well, someone's going to start doing your job better than you. So there's this constant incentive to either be good or be better, right? And I think philanthropy, because it has no natural predator, allows itself to be complacent. And that's not everybody. Once again, I'm being very hyperbolic. There's some great foundations that are doing very, very progressive work out there and really challenging the status quo.
But the scenario and just the playing field, it lends to that.
Right.
Because it's this conservative type of thought process and it's been established and that's kind of just how it works.
Right.
So I like the fact that somebody can question that sacred cow there. Maybe there's another way to do this.
Right.
And maybe that can have a different impact, but that conversation, you have to open this door that some people don't ever really want to have open, right?
Right. And I talk a lot about this on my podcast, Do Different Better, of understanding these mechanisms and deciding, even for you, I have a girlfriend of mine, she is thinking about starting a foundation, her own. She's gotten to a place in her affluence where she's because it's also a tax strategy. Let's also be honest about that. Right. And so I said to her, well, what is your foundation going to be about? And so she starts telling me, and I said, well, I want to challenge you a little bit. I said, I would love for your foundation, this is a Black woman, I said, I would love for your foundation to buy life insurance policies for Black women. That's what your foundation does. Because we know that Black women, particularly Black families, they end up dying and they go into debt paying for the funeral.
Yeah, beginning with the end in mind. That whole
right. So I said, if you have a foundation, you could give grants in the way that pay for life insurance policies. And you could buy a life insurance policy. And now, if you really are thinking about perpetuity for the foundation, you buy an insurance company that then issues these insurance policies for these Black women. Just a crazy idea.
It's a good one though.
And maybe
it makes real impact today, tomorrow, the next day in people's lives.
Exactly.
In a really stressful scenario, right?
Yeah.
That, I mean, just the ability to be in a position like that and be trying to look for a tax strategy and then have the opportunity to make such an impact. Like, even if it is just a tax strategy, like, who really cares? Like, the impact is the impact.
Right.
And the way I think, and it sounds like the way you think, is like, is there a way to amplify that impact?
Right.
By cutting through some of the red tape that's been laid down. Really.
Exactly.
So in your business, you started it up a few years before COVID, right?
Yes.
And then you've started like this whole event organization. Like, what do you even call it? Like, it's a very dynamic business that you've got.
So, because I live on Team Do Too Much, I was like, oh, we actually don't have a mechanism. So I was finding that entrepreneurs talk to entrepreneurs, bankers and investors talk to bankers and investors, and entrepreneur ecosystem support organizations called ESOs, they are talking to, but nobody was really bringing everybody together to be like,
let's bridge the gaps.
Right. Like, what's happening, and what do we need to do, and who are the people, places, and spaces that need to be brought together? So in 2017, I came into my office. I told my team, we're going to do a conference. And part of this, like, I don't want to say, come off too altruistic. Part of this was to solve my own problem.
That's okay.
Right? I'm having a problem, and if I'm having a problem, I'm sure other people are having this problem. So I said, we're going to do an event, and the whole purpose of the event is to bridge the 180 degrees of separation between all of these communities, right? And it's not a pitch. It's really about people learning and extracting from each other, like, what do I need to do for you to see me, and vice versa, right? But also for entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs think investors are these super uber wealthy people that live in these ivory towers that are inaccessible, right? And I'm like, no, actually,
they're just guys.
They live around the corner. Right. They just live around the corner. I mean, there's a saying, I don't know if you've heard it, but like Minnesota is like the top per capita of next door millionaires. Like, there's so many people.
Who, I've never heard that before.
Yeah. So we have more next door millionaires per capita. Like, you would never know. Right. So, but these are people who, they might not be investing like, JP Morgan money, but they're like, hey, I have $150,000 that I could invest to like support an entrepreneur. Right. So the whole idea was like, and I would talk to these people because I worked in philanthropy. I'm like, oh, like, they're not these big scary people, and entrepreneurs are not big scary people. So like, let's put you all together.
Different languages,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
Like different stages in the financial journey.
Exactly.
And people in the entrepreneurial stage are like, I'm trying to grow. Oftentimes have very little business understanding of the money,
right?
And they're applying their life and their personal finances to their business.
Exactly.
And they're kind of speaking and thinking that language. And banks and investors, they're looking at, like, the story is in the numbers, and all the other stuff is part of the story, and we'll ask questions to get some of those answers.
Right.
But it starts with the numbers.
100%. So I'm like, I want to break down these silos. I want to break down the language. And so I said, well, we're going to do a conference. And the whole idea is that we just want to bring the ecosystem together, learn, share. And I said, I also want to import knowledge. So I knew some really brilliant people who are doing this similar work. I said, I want them to come in. So I had about probably 20% of the people attending that were from out of state. I'm like, we have things that we can export. We have some really great knowledge that we can export, but we can also import some different ways of approaching entrepreneurship. So in 2018, we did our first Connect Up Summit, and my team was like, well, Elaine, what does success look like to you? I said, listen, if 20 people come, I will be happy. We actually had 200, and we sold out.
There's no way you're going to get more people in. So crazy success, way above what you define success as.
Absolutely.
Right? And so did that make you want to do it again?
We took a pause, right?
Okay.
So I wanted to be mindful of the adrenaline rush and not commit right away.
Well, because the event business is a business in and of itself.
It is. And I really wanted, to your point, I wanted to be thoughtful, like, this is a whole nother thing. We already have a business, and did my staff want to do it? So I gave the staff a week off after the event. And so when we came back and we were kind of debriefing about what went well, what didn't go well, I asked the team after all of that, I said, do we want to do this again? And the team was like a resounding yes, which I wasn't expecting. And they were like, no, we have our jobs to do. Yeah. But they were like, no, this was so great. People were so appreciative. everybody was like, this was amazing. They're like, yes, we got to do it again. So, but now we had more time. We had a whole year to plan as opposed to like 6 months to plan. So we did it again in 2019, and then we did it again in 2020, 2 days before the shutdown.
Ooh, good timing there.
Yes.
So how did it evolve over those other 2 times? What were the changes or tweaks that you made from the event from 2019 to 2020?
The big thing was to leave a hotel. It was very expensive to do it at a hotel.
Cost, yeah.
And you have to use their catering. You have to use their AV. And so because this was about small business, we wanted to have small business caterers. We wanted to give folks a chance who like wouldn't necessarily get a chance. So we
the community you're building, you're trying to support it.
Exactly.
What you preach.
Exactly. So the second year we went to Metro State. So that gave us a lot more freedom. One, it was less expensive. It gave us a lot more freedom because they allowed us to bring in outside vendors. So that was like super amazing. So yeah, we had all local caterers. We tried to source as much of like our printing. So we had a local printer do like all of our swag. We tried to hire as many local businesses as possible, because my whole thing is like, it's also about commerce, right? We can't just say that we're going to do a thing. Like we have to show it by moving the money.
Where do you spend your money? That's
exactly.
where you really get to vote and like
all the things.
So you got a little bit of flexibility that allowed you to really support the community that you're building. So in 2020, right before COVID, first of all, I'm surprised you still got to pull that event off. But second of all, how did it go?
So it was sheer entrepreneurship determination, because we did get a call the Wednesday before the event.
They tried to pull the plug.
And they tried to pull the plug. And they called me at 6 o'clock at night. And they're like, so Elaine, you can't do your event. I was like, I will be there. You don't have to be there, but I will be there. And I don't think they were prepared for that answer. They're like, we'll call you back. They called me back 2 hours later at 8 o'clock at night, the Wednesday before our event. And they said, okay, you can still do it, but you can't have more than 120 people, which was fine because our event is 200, we max out at 200 people anyway. And the other like 70 people that were planning on attending, they were from out of town. So they weren't going to be coming, right. They weren't coming anyway. So it was perfect. We're like, oh, we can do that.
Big deal.
No big deal. And we knew that the speakers, they were also, most of the speakers just said, I'm coming to do my thing and then I'm leaving. But I will say this, we didn't know what this COVID thing was. But we took it very seriously. So we had wipes on every single table. We were wiping down the tables every hour. We were asking people to wipe down their tables once they did the breakout sessions. After that session, we asked everybody to wipe down their table.
It wasn't a super spreader is what you're saying.
Right. And believe me, I literally was praying to all the gods for the 2 weeks afterwards of like, please don't let
get sick.
I'm like, nobody go on social media and say, I went to this thing. And I'm just like, please, 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 please. And no one did. No one, even to this day. But I will say this, people said, thank you for not canceling, because that was the last thing I did. And it set me up for what I needed to do during COVID to get my business together.
Crazy how things happen.
So it was a beautiful thing. And I even talked about it at the event. I was like, listen, we don't have a choice there was no way that I was going to shut this down for a lot of reasons. One, I'm like, nobody's getting their money back. So I'm like, there's the practical thing of like, I'm not doing any refunds. Yeah. The money's already spent. But also we as entrepreneurs, I had to demonstrate resiliency.
Leading by example. Yeah.
Leading by example. So I said, we don't have a choice as small businesses. We don't have a choice. We have to keep showing up every day, even though we're tired, even though, and so I had to demonstrate that, and to do that with grace, right? Because I also believe that entrepreneurs don't believe that they can take breaks. And I'm like, yes, you can reimagineer a thing so that you can actually take care of yourself. And so you don't want to work yourself into the ground. That's not the goal. That's not the objective.
Not, but sometimes you don't even realize you're doing it
that
until
part.
Somebody starts the conversation and sparks the whole thought process for you.
Exactly.
So fast forward to 2025. Where are you at now in your business? I know you've got a new employee that even started here today. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish in your business as it stands today.
Yeah, so we definitely, the content, one of the things that we've been able to realize over the last 5 years is like, one, who's our avatar and what is it that we're serving, right? So very similar, even though we're a nonprofit, I run the organization like a business, right? So we're called a social enterprise for that reason. So it's like, okay, so what are we doing? So we like to say that our sweet spot is we serve businesses that are 3 to 10 years old, because there's something I feel that magical happens at that year 2.5 to year 3. That first 2 years is really hustle. You're just like trying to figure it out. You're like, who am I selling to? I'm going to all the farmers markets. I'm going to all the pop-ups. I'm doing all the things. But then you're like, I don't want to do that. I do want to do that. That was successful. That wasn't successful. And you hit this stride around year 3 of like, something's not clicking. Like I'm not getting to the next level.
Pattern recognition.
Right. Of like, something's going on. I don't know what it is. Something's not working, or I'm stuck at this revenue level and I can't seem to break past this revenue level. And usually it's the same thing. So we say we are like your mom. We focus on your marketing, your operations, and your money. That's all that we do.
What a good acronym.
Right? We focus on money, operations, and marketing. That's all we do. All of our programming, whether you're coming to a boot camp, you're coming to a conference, you're coming to a workshop, it's focused on one or more of those 3 things and nothing else. We don't do anything else. And so one, that gives us clarity of like, once again, of opportunities of people who want to partner. And we're like, okay, does it have to do with these 3 things? Nope. We're not a good partner for you because this is all that we focus on. We are industry agnostic. We'll support almost any business except for a restaurant and a tech-based businesses. One, I feel like tech-based businesses have enough support out here in the ecosystem. They're fine. And that's just not my ministry. Like, I don't know how to grow a tech business, don't want to learn how to grow a tech business. There are plenty of great people who know how to do that. But restaurants also have a level of sophistication and a level of complexity that also I'm not interested in learning about.
Tough businesses to have success in anyway.
Exactly.
Margins are tough.
Exactly.
Even if you're the best restaurant out there, you still got tough margins.
Exactly. So, and I just know that I don't have a level of expertise in that. So I don't want to learn. So I'm like, there are other people who do that work as well. So, but pretty much we focus, and this is not by design, but service-based businesses and consumer packaged goods businesses. Those are typically who we find are attracted to our programs. But we don't service them exclusively, but I would say 80% of them represent.
You're really talking, like, you haven't even talked revenue, size, or quality, or models at all. You're literally just talking about the journey and the timeline of their entrepreneurial journey so far. So,
yes.
After 3 years, they've solved a lot of things. They've at least got cash coming in, and they've got cash going out.
Right.
And now they're trying to get it to a different level,
right.
Whether it's systems, whether it's people,
right.
Whatever it might be. They don't even know the right questions to ask.
Exactly.
Right? And so the focus, you get to this point where there's all these different plates spinning again.
Right.
And now it's, who can help me, and where are the resources that are out there? And it sounds like you guys kind of help bridge that gap.
Right. So we provide one-on-one technical assistance. We have 2 12-week accelerator programs. We have our Lunar program and we have our Capital Readiness program. Both are 12 weeks. It's 1 day a week for 3 hours. Again, you get a mindset coach, you get a fractional executive that supports you, you get the cohort, right? And then you get the in-class working time too. And we're not just teaching you, we do teach, do. So you're learning a thing and you're doing a thing in the class, right? I don't know about you, but I would sit in math class in school and I'd be like, I got it. And then I'd get home to do my homework and I'm like, I don't got it, right? So we're like, no, you're going to learn a thing, you're going to do a thing. You're going to learn a thing, you're going to do a thing. So you get that at bat with the safety and security.
Are you actually working on your business then?
Absolutely.
Genius.
Yeah.
So the accelerator programs then, like, can you talk about talk to the people who it would
support.
It would support the best right now. What are they thinking about right now, and what would they be thinking about when they are walking away after successfully completing it?
So I'm going to talk about it from 2 sides. One, what I hear entrepreneurs say.
Okay.
When you ask them, oh, who's your customer? Everybody's my customer. No, they're not.
Okay.
And let's first educate you on like why everyone's not your customer and why you've got to get really specific about who your customer is, your avatar, and how you're going to reach them. Like naming them, what are the psychographics, what are the demographics, right? So helping people understand that, because that actually drives everything else, right? It and your unique value proposition. How are you, especially with service-based business, you're not the only person doing this, right? And I love when entrepreneurs come to me and like, I don't want to talk about my idea because somebody might steal it.
You don't got the secret sauce.
Okay. I'm like, we are now living in the age of AI. Yeah. There's very few things that are new to the world, like too new to the world. But what you can do is figure out what's your specialness.
And how do you use that to differentiate?
Right. What's going to be your delivery, whether it's the experience, whether it's the cost, or whether it's some other market advantage, right? Maybe it's geography, whatever the thing is. So, when people say like, everyone's my customer, or they have these pain points like we were talking about before of just like, hey, things are going okay, but I don't know how to make them better, right? I've got some good clients, but like, how do I don't want to be servicing the client. Like, that was my question. I was like, how do I hire my first employee? When should I be thinking about hiring my first employee? Should I have a certain amount of money in the bank? Should I have a certain, like, what needs to happen?
Such a tough thought process, right?
Right.
Like, I talk to people all the time that are asking that question. Like, who do I hire? When do I hire? Do I hire him part-time or full? Like, all these different things.
Right.
And sometimes you just got to way back up and rethink what you're even trying to address.
And for me, the question was, I landed on the question of, and I got some inspiration around this, so it wasn't my original thought of like, if I make a hire, what hire would actually get me 30% more time back in my day? Because now that's super concrete. I'm trying to buy back time, which means I'm going to have to delegate.
Yeah.
Right? So what is the thing that I'm doing that is taking up a lot of time that somebody else can do that would then free me up to get more sales, that would free me up to like do whatever the other things that are important?
Because at that point, the entrepreneur's time and focus is the asset that can be leveraged the most. Right. And getting to that point where you can leverage it is that's the bottleneck for growth.
Right, exactly.
But if we think about it, it's really all between the ears and the psychology
of
that problem, right?
A lot of it. And just being able, and going back to how we started, which is, I'm the only one who can do it. It's no one's going to do it like me. And I tell them, yeah, you're absolutely right. Yep. No one is going to do it like you. No one is going to do it the way that you do it. But if you create a process and a system, you can get it pretty darn close because you're telling them exactly how to do it the way that you do it.
And the other question is, do you want to be the one doing it? How you're doing it in 5 years?
I think they lie to themselves and they're like, yeah. And I'm like, no. Well, then my follow-up question is, so you want to stay this size? That's what you're telling me.
That's a dagger for an entrepreneur.
Right. It's,
that's what they need. That's what you need to hear a lot of times, right? You need somebody to kind of snap you back in and really get you to put the emotions to the side and think about the business as if you're an investor in the business and you're trying to get the returns on that.
Right.
And that separation of that thought process it's difficult.
Yeah.
Because that money, that's your money when you're the business owner.
Well, and I tell them, I say, think of yourself as a $300 an hour employee. Would you pay somebody $300 an hour to lick envelopes? I would hope not.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yeah.
It desensitizes you to the thing that you've convinced yourself that you need to do. Now, does that mean as a $300 an hour employee, I'm not going to take out the garbage? No. But the whole thing is to spark a thought in you of like, how am I as the owner spending my time? And if I'm, and I even said this to an entrepreneur because she was literally licking envelopes. And I'm like,
I've been the king of licking envelopes.
Right. So I'm like, could you hire a kid to lick those envelopes? And she never thought about it. She's like, I said, do you have a nephew? Do you have a niece? Do you have like somebody in your, do you have a retired person who wants something to do?
What even is going in the envelope? Why are we sending envelopes?
Right. You never know. Like, right. Or even like the cards, like, I've got folks that have like a consumer package product. And so they put like notes and things like that, right. That go along with the product. And it's like, okay, could you hire a kid? Your neighborhood kid, or if you've got an auntie who's retired, give her some work. But again, should you be doing that? Is somebody else who can do that? Even if you're paying a kid $5 an hour, what could you be doing with that hour? Could you be making some sales calls? Could you be going visiting a client and try to upsell them into more business? Thinking about what you're actually spending your time on that's comfortable versus the thing you need to be spending your time on, which will grow the business.
Yeah, because what really happens is the entrepreneur, whether it's conscious or subconscious, they'll gravitate towards the easy thing.
Of course.
The envelope licking, if you will.
Yes.
As opposed to I got to make 20 outbound phone calls to follow up on proposals.
Right.
Like that's the one that actually moves the needle and you should be doing.
Right.
But rather than running towards that, a lot of times we're licking envelopes.
Exactly. Because no one likes to talk on the phone now. I literally have to put in my job descriptions, phone calls required, because I ran through a set of employees that would not make phone calls.
Well, but it actually gets stuff done. Like people are like, oh, nobody answers the phone. Like most people just respond to text. Yeah, until you call them.
Yeah.
And then they answer the phone. And especially if you're in a service business,
Right.
where people want something or they have a question or
Yeah,
whatever.
they want it to be answered.
And then with this whole like AI era that's coming in, like now is the how do we make sure that the service is still being provided,
Right.
but we're leveraging the resources and there's still a really human feel to
Right.
it. So there's this whole new problem and questions that are being answered within that thought process. And I know you guys have an AI series that you're doing education on. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So our AI for Small Business series, we did an in-person event last year, well attended. Everyone's like, this was amazing because it was really about AI for small business. How does small business leverage this thing? And it's always surprising, but not surprising of like how many small businesses are like, I don't know what AI is. I don't want to use it. And I'm like, AI, for all its issues environmentally and all the other things ethically, AI is the great equalizer, right? When you think about how do you as a small consumer packaged goods product compete with like a Maybelline or, a big store brand, this is it. Like this is it. And it will learn from your competitor, right? And I tell my entrepreneurs, I literally said this, we are having our final presentations for our accelerator this week. And I said to them, it is okay to imitate your competitor, right? Because guess what? Especially if your competitor is a big brand, they've already paid for the mistakes that you can't afford to do. Literally.
You don't want to necessarily be them, but
Right.
you can mimic and model after them to accelerate the learning curve for yourself in your own
Because they
business.
figured some stuff out and they've paid the tuition. So piggyback off of their tuition that like if they're advertising in this market and not this market, maybe you should follow suit.
Yeah. Like not just being the contrarian and saying, well, I'm going to advertise in this market over here.
Right.
Well, there could be opportunity there, or there could be something that people have already learned.
Exactly.
And by looking at the horizon for your business and what's taking place, you can learn those things and save a lot of money, right?
Time, money, because you have less, like the risk that you can take is so much smaller. And there are bigger implications for if you mess up, right? So being able to follow behind somebody's footsteps, and I know there's a whole thing with entrepreneurs like, I want to do it and I want to do it my way. And I'm like, okay, but also business is a science, right? So we have certain ways that we do experiments, right? We don't just be willy-nilly when we do experiments. Like we've come to a place of like, this is how an experiment gets done. Business for a lot of the structure piece is the same. I don't care if your business is pest control or if your business is, you're an eyelash, you do eyelashes, right? To your point, how many customers do you have a month? Are you able to upsell them? How are you going to grow? Are you going to grow through market share? Are you going to go through geography? Are you going to grow with the types of customers? Are you going to grow by new product development? That part of it is all a science. It's predictable no matter what the business is, which is another reason why we say we focus on marketing, operations, and money, because that's the science behind the business. And I don't care what your business is, it operates the same way, right?
So when you say operations, is there like the operations of sales involved?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I think that early on for a lot of businesses, that is the number one thing that needs to be done. And I've actually seen a lot of people in the pest control space, at least, invest so many hours and so much time in these processes and procedures that might be useful when they get to a little bit bigger stage, but they're delaying their growth because rather than focusing on the sales and the new business coming in to create more resources to make the processes, they're process focused. So how do you think about that kind of dynamic when there's a business that's growing and marketing is critical to be able to make sales, right? But if the sale doesn't happen, there's this gap.
Right.
So how do you kind of play that teeter-totter in your own mind?
So it is murky, and the horrible answer is it depends, right? And so what I say
In business, that's the answer
right,
all the time,
right,
though,
it depends, right? So what I try to do to try to like bring clarification to that it depends is what needs to happen in the next 90 days. So now that's a very finite a period, and to your point is it more important the next 90 days for me to generate sales, or is it more important for me to figure it out so when we get the sale we can actually deliver? Right? So now it's like, now that we can get clarity on that, oh no, I can't go out and get the sales because we keep mucking it up every time we get a sale. So I'm like, okay, so let's focus on the process. The next 90 days, we're going to spend 20% of our time, because the other 80% is still doing the things that you always do. We're going to spend 20% of our time for the next 90 days fixing whatever process, and ideally one.
Yes.
Like, what's going to be the one process that's going to be fundamentally different?
Powerful. The focus, right? Because if you have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 things, now the progress you make in those things
is slow and nothing, and energy falls off, and then you never go back to it, and you just start a whole nother 5 things, right? And it's hard, it's painful. Like, even in my organization, we're doing some of this, and I tell my staff, I go, I understand it feels like we're swimming through honey, but I promise, it's like, I call it like cleaning out the garage, right? Cleaning out the garage is horrible. You've got to take everything out. Like, there's no way around it. You got to take everything out. You got to think about, how do I want to use the space? Where do I want my tools? Where do I want the lawnmower? Where do I want the snowblower for access, right? And how will I use my garage seasonally? And then you've got to go through the painstaking of like, okay, so what are the organization pieces that we need to buy so that it is accessible? And then you got to put everything back. But then after that, anytime you got to go in the garage, you can get to whatever you need inside of seconds, as opposed to what it took before, right? And that's where the saving time is actually the value add that gets to the bottom line, that doesn't actually, like, there's no investment there really, but it actually has a financial return.
And it's hard to like track and quantify
It is.
that, and it doesn't show up on the P&L really, unless you have massive inventory and you can look at it
Right. How long does it take you to pick, right? If you've got if you've got a product business and you're like, okay, our picking time is now down from like 10 minutes down to 5 minutes. I know for me in social impact now, it was about proposal time. When I did a time study, I was finding it took me 10 hours to do a proposal. Between me and my top project manager, she was like spending like 5 hours or 7 hours, and I was spending like 3 kind of doing revision. So I'm like, but I had to do a time study first of like, we had to take a couple of proposals, timed how long it took us. And we're like, oh shit, we had no idea that we were.
Pay attention to that. And then you're like, oh my gosh, like we got to fix this.
We got to fix this. So what can we do? So we got that down to 5 hours, and we got to like, okay, if we've got it down to 5 hours, how now are we going to build that back into the actual proposal to pay for that time, right? Because proposal writing is time you don't get paid for.
Correct.
But we can build our proposal where we're going to get that money back. Like, so we're padding the different services so that we can get that money back.
Well, and the other thing that happens there is now you create this opportunity to essentially double the output and the size of the pipeline.
Right.
That same 10 hours you were spending on proposal building, you can still spend 10 hours, but now you're building 2 proposals.
Exactly.
And
Or 3 or 4.
And that's a huge lever.
Right.
Those efficiencies that get created when you ask the right questions, or you're in the right room, that helps you get that helps you ask the right question, that now you can have a massive change forward in your business. Like, sometimes it's just like a little light bulb that goes off. Right?
But you have to do it. Like, that's the thing. No one wants to do a time study. No, I didn't want to do a time study, but it was fundamentally shifted my business.
And we're doing that with our leadership team now, even, right? Like, we've got to the point where we've built leadership. They're all growing and evolving in their roles, and with that, time allocation has to change.
Right.
And so, like, literally within the last week, our director of ops put that in play. Like, hey guys, let's think about how we're spending our time. The next 5 months, that's when we make a lot of changes in our business. because there's not as many bugs.
Right. In the wintertime,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Right.
Like we still have operations going, but now is when we really click in. So let's make sure we're being good stewards of our time.
Yeah.
And we're just putting that into the areas that drive the key focus for the next 90 days, especially. So those time studies, just like, even if it's retroactively, end of the day, taking 15 minutes and really thinking about, like, by the half hour, like, what did I do?
What did I spend my time
Sometimes
on?
you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't done anything. Like,
Right.
I've been there.
Phone calls. I've spent a whole day in
Yes.
just Zoom meeting.
Yep. And the people that I talk to, like, oftentimes when they just start the thought around it, and they'll do it for 2 or 3 days, and like they'll get enough information they're already starting to make changes.
Exactly.
Right? All right, so we got a little bit of time here.
Okay.
Tell the listeners and the viewers, like, how they can get a hold of you, what some things that you could help people solve in their business, or even the investors. I know you're looking for kind of two avatars here.
Yes,
right?
absolutely. So definitely we are looking for entrepreneurs that are 3 to 10 years old. We do take folks, that's not a disqualifier, but obviously we're asking questions that usually makes sense at that 3-year mark. That makes sense to you if you're coming in at the 2-year mark. But we have our AI for small business event that's going to be coming up, and that's a 3-part series. It's virtual, so you can be anywhere in the country and sign up for that. We also have our accelerator, our lunar accelerator, which is really that kind of like you're in maybe year 2 to year 5, and you're like, okay, I really want to get technical about who's my customer? How am I going to reach them? What's my business model? How am I going to grow? That we have open enrollment for that, but the program starts in February and it's going to be 12 weeks. We also have our Capital Readiness Accelerator. It also starts in February. It's 12 weeks, and you can go to connectupmn as in Minnesota.org, and all the information is there for that. But I'm also hosting an event December 14th, Sunday. It's called Do Different Better Live, where we're working with individuals, particularly with women, who are figuring out or thinking about how do they align their money with their values. So looking at their investment portfolio, we're going to be talking about what are the different asset classes and what are the constraints of each asset class and how you might want to think about aligning your money with your values. And then we're going to have a wonderful 2 special guest speakers, Dr. Luana Whitmore, as well as Moonshine Stylist. So Moonshine Stylist works with women particularly, but also men, about their outer appearance. So if you are now making this decision of like, you want to be on a wealth journey, whatever wealth, however you define that, and you want your outside to match your inside, she can help you like make sure that those things align with each other based on whatever interests you and how you want to show up in the world. She'll help you with that. And Dr. Luana Whitmore is going to be talking about our mindset, money mindset. What does that mean? What does that look like? What are the tapes that you've been saying to yourself about money? What's your relationship with money? And how might you want to change your relationship?
Like a good one.
It is. It's going to be.
That's December 14th.
That's December 14th. And that you can go to dodifferentbetter.com, but you can also find me on Instagram at Do Better with Elaine, and my podcast, Do Different Better, on YouTube and Spotify.
And when do you release those episodes?
They're every Sunday, but we're going to try to start getting some more frequency because people are like clamoring for more. And I always encourage people, like, DM me, especially on Instagram, send me a message of like, hey, can you talk about this? Or I talk about everything. I talk about divorce. So what does money and divorce look like, and how might you want to think about protecting yourself or getting ready for a divorce, or maybe you're in a divorce, and like, what are the things you should be thinking about, whether you have an attorney or not. We talk about, my show, I talked about the government shutdown, like what led to it, like literally, like seriously. And my show is nonpartisan. So I'm really talking about from the practicalities of a thing. So what actually led to our government shutdown? How might it
have like another agenda? That
Right.
You're trying to push.
How might it impact you as a business owner? What does it look like? And what can you do, knowing maybe you do have some government contracts? So what can you do? What should you be doing? How do you prepare your business so that you're not as sensitive to something like this?
That's good. All right. One last thing that we ask every guest when they come on: what does hustle mean to you when it comes to business?
Hustle is that thing that when you do a thing despite everybody telling you it's crazy, everybody telling you you're stupid, everybody giving you side eye, everybody like hustle mode. I call that hustle mode, right? Hustle is the thing that like made you quit a job and go do a thing. Hustle is believing in, you're not sure how you're going to get there, but you're like, this thing is going to happen. You are manifesting through energy that this thing is going to happen. You don't know how, you don't know when, you haven't figured out all the pieces, but you're going, it's really fear with courage.
Like harnessed fear.
Yeah, harness fear and going forward anyway, which is a magical and beautiful thing.
It's just like that description of what hustle means. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you, Elaine, for joining me
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Keep sending us the DMs and the questions that you're sending in. We're getting great guests that are not only saying yes to coming on like Elaine, but also reaching out to us because they see the platform and the community that we're building. So thank you all for supporting us. Keep tuning in, and until next time, keep hustling.
Hey,
thanks for tuning into the Homegrown Hustle. It's been an honor to share the stories of local legends who make our community thrive. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Please stay tuned for more insight and inspiration. We got a lot of heat in the chamber. This is Matthew Eichmann saying peace out until next time. Get hustling.